Okay, let's journey back. Imagine ancient Patagonia millions of years ago. It's not quite the landscape we picture now. Maybe wetter, definitely full of life.
And some really unique creatures, yeah. Stories we're just starting to piece together.
Exactly, and that's where we're headed today. We're doing a deep dive into a fascinating little dinosaur called Anabisetia.
Our main guide here is the scientific paper that described it, plus some related research that helps place it, in the bigger picture.
Right. So our mission really is to figure out what makes Anabisetia special and, what its discovery tells us about that whole late Cretaceous period down there in South America.
Definitely.
Okay, first things first, that name. Anabisetia. How do we say that again?
It's Simisetia.
Anabisetia.
Anabisetia, got it. And there's a story behind the name, right?
Yeah, there is. The genus name, Anabisetia, it actually honors Anna Maria Bisset. She was a really influential archaeologist in Argentina's New Cane province.
Ah, okay, so from the region where they found it. Exactly. It's a great way to recognize the local scientists involved. Really important.
That is cool. And the second part, Saldivia.
That one honors Roberto Saldivia Blanco. He was the local farmer who actually found the fossils.
No way. When was that?
He found them way back in 1985, just, on his land.
Wow.
Yeah. It took a bit of time, though. He brought them to scientists' attention around 1993. There were some sort of brief mentions, I think, in papers around 96, maybe.
Huh. It really shows how important local people are for these discoveries, doesn't it? Things could just stay hidden otherwise.
Absolutely. That connection is vital. So we actually have 4 specimens known for Anabisetia.
4 of them.
Yep. They're all housed at the Museo Carmen Funes in Plaza Juncul, Argentina. They've got catalog numbers MCFP, BPH 74, 75, 76, and 77. Helps keep track.
Right, like library codes for fossils. And is one better than the other?
Well, the first one, number 74, that's the holotype. It's the most complete.
Okay.
It has bits of the skull, part of the brain case, both lower jaw bones,
Oh, nice.
a complete front leg, back leg, foot, and, a decent sample of vertebrae from the spine.
So even without everything, you get a pretty good idea of the animal.
You do, yeah. And the other 3 specimens, 75, 76, and 77, they fill in some important gaps.
Ah, okay. Like what?
More vertebrae, a whole pelvis, the hip bones, and a nearly complete tail. And the tail was articulated.
Meaning all the bones were still connected.
Exactly.
Yeah.
As they were in life. So, yeah, the big missing piece is really the complete skull, but the rest of the skeleton is mostly known. So pretty good.
Okay, so we know what they found. Let's pin down the when and where. Late Cretaceous Patagonia, you said.
Yep, Late Cretaceous. Specifically, Prazo and Quil in New Cane Province, Argentina. Same place we mentioned.
And the rocks they were found in, the Cerro Lisandro Formation, that tells us something too.
It does. It's part of a bigger geological picture, the Rio Lime subgroup, which is in the New Cane group.
Yeah.
But the key thing about Cerro Lisandro is that it preserved an ancient swamp environment.
A swamp. Interesting. Not the dry plains I usually picture.
All right. This swamp dates to the late Cenomanian through early Turonian stages. So time-wise, we're talking roughly 95 to 92 million years ago.
95 million years ago. Wow. And a swampy home for Anabisetia.
Suggests a very different world back then. Wetter, maybe different plants available compared to drier areas.
Makes sense. Okay, so we've got the setting. Let's get to the dinosaur itself. What did Anabisetia look like? Small, you mentioned.
Yeah, relatively small. A bipedal herbivore, so walked on 2 legs, ate plants. Length estimate is around 2 meters.
About 6.5 feet.
Pretty much. And weight-wise, Gregory S. Paul estimated maybe 20 kilograms back in 2010.
44 pounds. So like a medium to large dog.
Something like that, yeah. Definitely not a giant.
But distinctive, right? Not just another small plant eater. There were some unique things about its bones.
Oh, absolutely. That's what sets it apart.
Yeah.
For example, the bit at the back of the skull that connects to the neck, the occipital condyle. In Anabisetia, it pointed sort of downwards more than usual.
Huh. Weird. What else?
The shoulder blade. It had this projection, the acromial process, that was unusually large compared to related dinosaurs, the Ornithopoda.
Okay.
And then in the hand, the 5th metatarsal think base of the pinky finger bone, it was flattened with straight edges, not rounded like you often see.
Okay, these are pretty specific anatomical points. Anything else major?
Yeah, a couple more in the pelvis. The ilium, the big upper hip bone,
Yeah.
its front part, the blade, was really long, over half the bone's total length, and it actually stuck out in front of another pelvic bone, the prepubis.
Right.
And the ischium, the one that points backwards in the hip, its shaft was kind of triangular shaped up top, but more squarish further down.
Okay.
And one last one in the ankle, the fibula, the smaller lower leg bone. it actually touched the astragalus and ankle bone. That's not always the case.
Wow. Those details sound small, but I guess they're crucial for paleontologists, for figuring out movement and relationships.
Exactly. They're the clues we use. And speaking of relationships, figuring out Anabisetia's exact spot on the family tree. Well, that's been a bit of a puzzle, especially missing that skull.
Right, the skull's usually pretty key for that. So what was the initial idea?
Well, when Anabisetia and another one from Patagonia, Gasparinosaura, were first studied, one thought was that they were maybe basal iguanodontians.
Meaning like an early, more primitive branch of the iguanodontian group?
Kind of.
Hmm.
More derived than something like Tenontosaurus, but not quite in the main group of later iguanodontians. The idea was maybe they were relics, survivors from an early spread across Pangaea.
Interesting, like evolutionary holdouts in South America. But that thinking changed.
It did, yeah. As we got more data, more analysis, especially these cladistic analyses where you compare lots of features,
Right.
the picture shifted. Newer studies suggested Gasparinosaura might actually sit just outside Iguanodontia proper, maybe closer to some North American forms like Thescelosaurus or Parksosaurus.
Oh, okay.
And the thinking was, well, maybe Anabisetia is in a similar spot,
So less like ancient iguanodontian relics, more like something else.
potentially, yeah. And then more recently, in 2015, some research proposed a whole new group for them
A new group.
called Elasmeria. The idea is that both Anabisetia and Gasparinosaura belong in this clade.
Elasmeria. Never heard of that one. Who else is in it?
It seems to be mostly ornithopods from Late Cretaceous Antarctica and Patagonia.
Yeah.
So besides those two, you've got Mortosaurus, Trinosaura, Macrogryphosaurus, Nidohypsilophodon, and Talancolin.
Wow, quite a southern crowd.
Yeah, it suggests there might have been this distinct evolutionary radiation, diversification happening down south among these smaller plant eaters. Maybe isolation or unique conditions drove it. Still lots to figure out there.
Fascinating. So Elasmeria is where Anabisetia seems to fit now. We actually have a cladogram, like a family tree diagram, based on that 2015 research. And you can really see there, Anabisetia nestled within that Elasmeria branch. It branches off before you get to the main Iguanodontia group. And the diagram also shows other familiar names like Hypsilophodon, Thescelosaurus, Parksosaurus for context.
Yeah, and things like Tenontosaurus, Dryomorpha further out.
Yeah.
It really helps visualize where Anabisetia and its closest relatives might sit in that bigger ornithopod picture.
It definitely does. It really shows how science refines things as we find more evidence and develop new ways to analyze it.
Constantly evolving
Yeah.
our understanding.
So let's wrap up this deep dive. What are the absolute key takeaways for Anabisetia?
Okay, well, first, it's this unique, smallish, two-legged plant eater from Late Cretaceous Patagonia, around 92, 95 million years ago.
Right.
Second, it had some really distinct skeletal features. Remember the shoulder, hand, pelvis, ankle stuff.
Got it. Those specific details.
And third, its place on the family tree isn't totally fixed, but the current thinking, it's strong evidence, puts it in that Elasmeria group with other southern hemisphere ornithopods.
Amazing what bones can tell us. But it really leaves you hanging on that missing skull, doesn't it?
Oh, definitely.
What secrets is it still holding? About diet, maybe behavior. Could it completely change how we see its connections to those other southern dinosaurs?
Absolutely. Finding a good skull would be huge.
Yeah, definitely something to think about long after we're done here today.